Let us master our world. So how do we go about it? I am Coach Sess, and you are listening to Words with the Mad Coach. To master the world, our personal worlds, we have to master ourselves. We need to become more aware of things about us that we may have been taking for granted. For instance, take notice of the way that you learn. You want to pay attention to how you learn, through what senses, through what forces, through what mechanisms. The best way to get an understanding of this is simply to observe. Observe yourself and the world around you. Take notice of all your movements and your habits. Pay attention to your thoughts. Listen to the world around you. Listen to natural sounds, man-made sounds, artificial sounds. Add no judgment to anything. Simply listen. Listen to the birds chirp. Listen to the wind. You're just trying to understand how you receive information. Pay attention to how you feel, mentally and externally. Pay attention to how you feel. Again, you make no judgment about it. You simply just accept it. Then you have to understand, at some point in time, you learn to practice the things that you take away from the world, your perception of it. You start to put some things into practice. Now I'm going to go back and break down some of these concepts later, but right now I'm just giving you an overview. So you listen to your senses. You just try to accept what your eyes see. You try to accept the thoughts that come through your head. You want to learn and master your thoughts. And you want to learn to accept the lessons that have already happened to you and try to interpret what they mean. Give them some kind of meaning, some type of identity. And you want to learn from those lessons to move forward. Then to become more functional in our world, we have to start to establish routines, set patterns, deadlines. This is going to help us design the world the way we want. It's really the first step. You start setting routines and you start remaining disciplined to those routines. And you only change them when it's time to change them. And that usually happens when you're trying to explore other options, new worlds, new ideas, new thoughts. Because at this point, you're probably interacting with a lot of new people. You've gained some external ideas. You might have just observed a fox and a bird interacting, and it just gave you the $1 million idea. Who knows where ideas come from? They're amazing. Then you want to move into the world of perfection. And perfection is not this thing where everything goes right. It is about challenging yourself. First, you want to pay attention to your physical attributes. And this is where you try to understand your self-awareness, your strengths and your weaknesses, and also your awareness of self, your strengths and weaknesses in a very particular situation. Pay attention to your mental attributes. This is where a lot of people lose it. Some people are physically capable of doing most anything, but they are too emotional. They lack the discipline to remain composed in a tough situation. And this is where you challenge yourself and you train yourself in this phase to train your vulnerable attributes. You put yourself in positions of weakness and you try to work yourself out. This is a little bit self-imposed, but it does work. It does help. Then you start to understand mastery when you're able to get out of this phase, when you learn to accept everything that's happened to you and you kind of realize what the results have yielded and you realize what that process is, and you become satisfied that this process tends to repeat itself. And all you have to do is accept it and learn and learn and learn. And that's when you start to hit mastery. And it's at that point when you find yourself comfortable with who you are. You start to share your world. You start to recognize other people who have mastered something. And you learn to have appreciation for them. Even if you're not the same, they don't do the same thing as you. You learn to have an appreciation for them. And that is when you learn to design your tomorrow. Once you hit mastery. Mastery is always the point of use. It's not just putting in 10,000 hours. It's not just repetitions. Mastery is when the thing that you do so well that you can find a way to make it work against anyone. A boxer's jab. You take Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali had one of the best jabs in the business. And I am pretty sure that regardless of weight class, regardless of martial arts style, he would find a way to make it work. And if you've ever studied any of his writings and his teachings and watched the videos and listened to the way he talked, his persona alone tells you that what I'm saying about his jab is true. He would find a way to make it work. This is what mastery is all about. It's not about lack of fear. It's about turning that fear into something useful, into courage. It's about understanding why he's fearful at any particular time or moment, and then making your mind up to do something about it. That's the key to mastery. It's at the point of use. Most of us do things, we try, but we haven't gone through those other steps. The steps of perfection where we make ourselves vulnerable. So you don't have the proper training. So yes, you may eventually become successful and wealthy and rich, but it won't be without some type of difficulty or 12 labors that you had to face. Labors that may have cost you a lot in terms of friendships and relationships, might even cost you an arm. Had you just put yourself through the perfection phase where you challenge yourself to do more, to be more, you may have avoided some of those pitfalls. Mastery shouldn't be trial and error. We have too many examples today in 2023. People who've shown us the way, but we haven't learned. We haven't learned by observing. We haven't learned by listening. Because we get inside of our own heads and we start to tell our story that we can do things without them, or that we can never attain such a level. It's wrong. It's always possible. You're either going to talk yourself into doing it or you're going to talk yourself out of doing it. Just live with the why. Just learn to live with that why. Whichever one you want, just learn to live with it. Another reason why we fail to meet the mastery level is because we don't retain the real skills and put them into use. We gain skills and we become selfish. We don't want to share. We don't want to use. We simply become lazy. We don't want to appreciate someone else's skill or level of mastery because it's about us. We're too selfish, self-absorbed. And that self-absorption comes from a lack of practice. Mastery is something you have to work toward, and you have to learn to practice it. So just because you attain it in one area, it doesn't mean you stop there. doesn't mean you stop. I remember reading about Sugar Ray Leonard talking about his jab after, I think, 20 years of boxing. And he said, I'm just learning how to execute it. That's a mindset. That's a mentality you want to have when it comes to mastery. It's always at the point of use, so then it should never stop. The only thing that you're adding to it is that you're making subtle distinctions more and more. If you're orthodox, if you're southpaw, if you're tall, if you have power, if you're strong, if you have long arms or short arms, you're just making more and more distinctions. It's not hyperbole. You're doing it from an observant mind, a mind that has paid attention to the world around him, whether that be the natural world or just the boxing world, or just maybe the heavy bag. You notice that you can train your jab different ways on a heavy bag that weighs 150 pounds versus a bag that's 300 pounds versus a bag that's 200 pounds but goes all the way to the ground. You're starting to learn these different situations. You're starting to become more self-aware and have more awareness of self in the situation. This is how we understand mastery. As I stated before, this is nothing more than an overview. I will be bringing you more training concepts that I've used to help fighters attain certain levels of mastery over the skills that they have. And I'll give you examples of each athlete that I believe was really great at something that just set him or her apart from the rest of the team. These are not just concepts for mixed martial arts, but they're concepts for living. I am Coach Sess, and you've had words with the Mad Coach.